I'm Tom Hallick. Here's a look at the week that was in the Canadian Junior Football League. We start our look around the country in the Prairie Football Conference. It was semifinal Sunday on the Prairies, and for 57 minutes, 58 seconds, it looked as if the Winnipeg Rifles were going to pull off a huge upset as the Rifles led 34-22 until the Hilltops rallied with a pair of touchdowns from Regan Schuler to lift the champions to a 36-34 win to play for their second straight PFC championship. Hilltops quarterback Chase Bradshaw rebounded from an awful first quarter to throw for 388 yards and scored 3 touchdowns along the ground. The Rifles had quarter leads of 14-1 and 24-8 before the Hilltops scored the lone points of the third quarter. 2 Donovan Gregoire interceptions looked to finish off the Hilltops, but all the Rifles could muster off those turnovers was a lone field goal. For the Hilltops, Chad Braun had 10 catches for 150 yards, while Dylan Kemp on defense had 28 points. That was the second most in conference postseason history. Winnipeg quarterback Ryan Marsh threw for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns. Alex Vitt caught 7 passes for 104 yards and scored 2 touchdowns, while Martin Hovey had a second straight sensational semifinal as he ran for 159 yards. He ran for 200 plus in 2010. At McMahon Stadium, the Calgary Colts used a 22-point third quarter to propel themselves to their second PFC final in 4 seasons as they blasted the Regina Thunder 55-6. Roderick Joseph and Matt Lamoureux each reeled in touchdown grabs from Clayton Maskowicz, while backup tailback Chucks Okafor ran for a score. The Colts intercepted 6 Regina passes and returned 2 for pick sixes as Skylar Pinchak and Alex Soretsky would cash in. Soretsky's 92-yarder was the longest in PFC postseason history. Colts kicker Marshall Broom added 5 field goals, while the lone Thunder score came from John Probe in the game's final 3 minutes. We head to the BCFC. It was semifinal weekend on the West Coast. The heavily favored Vancouver Island Raiders took their opening drive 45 yards and culminated with a 2-yard score from quarterback Jordan Yance, while Quinn Van Gilswick replied with a 22-yard field goal for the Rebels as the Raiders downed the Rebels 49-17 in the first BCFC semifinal. The teams would trade huge blows after that, with Yance hitting Whitman Tumusiak for a 67-yard touchdown pass. Then the Rebels would reply back with a 75-yard touchdown bomb from Rebels quarterback Kat Todorovic to Vinny Canada to make the score 14-10 Raiders after 15 minutes. Todorovic would finish the day completing only 13 of 32 passes, but for 311 yards, including 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Canada would catch 3 balls for 160 yards on the day. But it wasn't enough, as the Raiders ran for 273 yards along the ground. Jordan Botel led the way with 144 yards, while Ashton Galloway had 87 of his own. Jordan Yance would throw touchdown strikes to Andrew Smith and a second to Tumusiak. Over in Kelowna, the Langley Rams scored a huge upset as they downed the Okanagan Sun 31-29 at the Apple Bowl. The Sun never led in the semifinal contest, but they had a chance to tie it and force overtime as Jeremy Moravec engineered a 108-yard drive, which finished off for a 2-yard touchdown run by Moravec. The 2-point convert pass intended for Dan Turek went incomplete as Turek would slip in the end zone. Rams receiver Nick Downey would catch 5 passes for 100 yards and get a pair of touchdowns on the day and continually give the Rams decent field position on both punt and kickoff returns. Receiver Dan English hauled in a pair of touchdown passes from quarterback John Ronnie, who finished the day 10 of 18 for 231 yards with 4 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions. Nick Naylor added a 28-yard field goal as the Rams led 10-0, 17-13, and 24-13 by quarters. Moravec for the Sun finished the day with completing 29 of 43 for 404 yards with 1 touchdown. That was a 69-yard strike to Dan Turek. He finished with 6 catches for 162 yards. We talked in this segment a couple of weeks ago about a tampering case involving the Vancouver Island Raiders. This week, the Raiders were exonerated by the British Columbia Football Conference after the discipline committee held their investigation. Over in the Ontario Conference, it was the final week of their regular season. It was a battle of the unbeatens in Windsor, as the Fratmen went to 8-0 on the season and won the regular season championship for the first time in a decade, as they rallied from an 11-point deficit to score a 27-21 win over the Hamilton Hurricanes. The Hurricanes would go out to a 14-3 lead. However, the Fratmen came back as Christian Hackney threw a 59-yard touchdown pass to get the Fratmen back into the contest, then would recover a fumble forced by Cayman Holmes, and Hackney would then hit Trevor Pomerensky with the go-ahead touchdown. At Stade Hébert in St. Leonard, it was the Cougars finishing the year 5-3 as they shut out the 2-6 London Beefeaters by a score of 39-0. The Twin Cities Predators would round out their first season in the OFC with a 2-6 record as they scored a 36-8 win over the Brampton Bears. Moving to Burlington in the final game of the regular season, it was the Burlington Braves downing the Ottawa Sooners 17-15. The Sooners fell behind 10-0 early but got a 70-yard touchdown reception from J.P. Hamelin on a pass from Yannick Rickley to get back into the ballgame. A fumble recovery in the Braves' end zone off a punt allowed the Sooners to tie the game at 14 before the Braves scored a single and got a safety. The Braves qualify for the playoffs. The Sooners are out. Taking a look at the week ahead in the Canadian Junior Football League, it will be in the OFC semifinals, the Burlington Braves at the Windsor AKO Fratmen at Alumni Field on Saturday night, October 22nd. That game kicks off at 7 o'clock. In the other OFC semifinal, the St. Leonard Cougars square off against the Hamilton Hurricanes in a rematch of last year's contest at Iverwin Stadium. That game goes at 7 o'clock Sunday night, October 23rd. The PFC Championship game goes at 1 o'clock at Griffith Stadium in Saskatoon on October 23rd as the Hilltops host the Calgary Colts. And in the British Columbia Conference Final for the Cullen Cup, it will be the Langley Rams taking on the Vancouver Island Raiders at Caledonia Park on October 22nd. Kickoff goes at 1 o'clock. That's your look at the Canadian Junior Football League. I'm Tom Hallick.